Good day, everyone. So, today's lesson, I'm going to be teaching us about making sales using sales invoice, purchasing using purchase invoice, and making payments via purchase and payment entries. All right, so let's get to it. So, to get to the sales and purchase invoices, to do that, you have to use the accounting module. So, click on the accounting module. So, from the accounting module, you can find the sales invoice here and the purchase invoice here. All right, so we're going to start with the purchase invoice because that is the first step in the product life cycle and the product cycle, inventory cycle. So the purchase there's actually a purchase process on the system, and the purchase process starts with material requests, and from there it goes to purchase order. From purchase order, you have to create a purchase receipt. Then from the purchase receipt, you have to create a purchase invoice, and you make payments on the purchase invoice. But then again, you can skip all first three steps of the purchase process and go straight to purchase invoice. Right. So I'm going to explain what different steps of the purchase process what they do. So the material request tells your supervisor that okay, we need so and so items, and this is the quantity of the items that we need. Then your purchase order is a document that shows the items you need, the quantity, and the proposed prices. All right. Then the purchase receipt is what helps you populate your stock. So when you actually receive those goods, you create a purchase receipt, and this increases the value of stock in the system. Then the purchase invoice lets you pay for goods. So the purchase invoice is what lets you make payment for goods that have been received. Like I said, you can always skip every single step of the way and go straight to the purchase invoice and make payments as well as increase the value of stock straight from the purchase invoice. All right, so we're going to be using the purchase invoice. So yeah, let's get into it. So to use the purchase invoice from the accounting module, you see the purchase invoice here. Just click on the purchase invoice, and it brings you to a list of all the purchase invoices you have on the system. The purchase invoice. Then this is the purchase invoice interface. So here it asks you for the company, the supplier, the date, the posting time, there's a tax ID, and a due date. Also, I will explain what all these checkboxes do. So let's start with it. So the first thing to do is to make sure that your company is correct, and then you input your supplier's name. So I'm going to say we're buying this, anything we are going to buy, we're buying from the open market. Then for me to change the date to backdate it, I click on the edit posting date and time. So this lets me backdate the purchase invoice to whatever date it is, but I'm still going to leave it on today's date. Then the posting time, you can always change the time. Then is paid lets you make payment on that purchase invoice. So you can either decide not to make payments. If you decide not to make payments on the purchase invoice, you can make payments later on. If you decide to make some sort of part payment, you can make part payments on the purchase invoice and make subsequent payments later on. Right. So click on is paid. Since you are going to make some sort of payment on this invoice, you are going to make probably like half or some sort of payment though. Then is return or debit notes lets you see whether this purchase invoice is you returning a previous purchase invoice. So if that is it, you click on is return. But since this is not, you leave it out. Then over here we have accounting dimensions, which lets you select your cost centers or your projects, whichever one it is that you have. Then supplier invoice details. If you have a supplier invoice number, you can always specify here, and the supplier invoice date you can specify as well. Then address and contact. If you have the supplier's address, the contact person, the shipping address, this billing address, all of that. Then currency and price list shows what currency are the prices that you're using on this purchase invoice. So if it's different from the currency you have, your company's default currency, you can always change that here. And the price list, if you have a separate price list for the items, you can always specify that here as well. Also, if you have raw material supplied, you can always specify here whether yes or no. So I'm going to leave this on no. Then over here we have update stock. Update stock is what lets you increase the stock value. Since we are skipping the purchase receipt side of things, we should check this update stock box. Now, once you check the update stock box, you can see that this set accepted warehouse prompt comes up and rejected warehouse raw material supplied. So your accepted warehouse is where you're going to be receiving these goods. All right. So I'm going to be saying I'm receiving these goods in my stores. All right. Then this is where you specify the items that you're buying and you're paying for. Specify them here. Yeah, it shows you the total quantity of items it just sums all the items in this column, sums them up and populates them here. The total price for everything. So it just sums all of this and populates that here. Then if taxes are applied on this, you input the tax category. You must have created the tax category prior to this. Then if there's a shipping rule, apply that as well. You must have created it prior to this. Purchase taxes and charges. Now if there are taxes and charges, you're going to see it here. Now if you get discounts on this purchase, if you get a discount on this purchase, you can always apply that discount whether in percentages or in actual figures. So here to show you the grand total of everything you're purchasing, rounding adjustment, the rounded total is an advance. Yes, it is an outstanding amount to show you as well. Now this is at this portion of payments is where you make your payments, all right? Then payment terms, if you are paying more than once, you can always specify here. Then terms and conditions, if there are special terms and conditions to this purchase, you can always write those here. Printing settings, not really necessary. Hold invoice, if you decide to hold this invoice for later on, then you can always click on that checkbox. More information, nothing really here, except if you want to select that this is an internal supplier, you can always check that here. Then accounting details just shows you where to credit it to, and if you have remarks, you can always specify that here. All right, so let's get into the purchase invoice properly. So again, I'm not selecting any cost centers for this purchase, but if I want to, I can always select the cost centers here. So I've already set my accepted warehouse to stores, FAOT. Now I'm going to input the items I want to buy. So I can either just type in here. So let's say I want to buy Ace of Spade. Then I can always click on. Okay, the reason why it populated the price was because I already have the price set in this price list, my standard buying price list, right? But then again, I can always edit the rate here. So if I see that this is already probably a bit cheaper, so let's say this is 880,000 now, the price has reduced, I can always change that here. Then if I want to add multiple things at once, instead of me clicking on add row to add a separate row and clicking on add row and I want to add a new one, I can always click on add multiple. But let's just add one more item here. So let's say I'm adding Ace of Spade, sec, just one of this as well. Then let's try add multiple. So I can say I'm adding Azu one as well. I'm adding Coke. I'm adding 12 pieces of Coke. And I'm adding Don Julio, 3 bottles. Okay, using my add multiple, I can always search for anything I want. So let's say I'm searching for NSC. I can always see I'm looking for NSC XO. And I say I want to buy 2 bottles of those. So again, once I've selected all of the things that I want to buy, yeah, I can just click on the save. But then again, I'm buying 1 bottle of Ace of Spade, I'm buying Ace of Spade, Demisec, Azul, Coke, Don Julio, and NSC XO. So I'm buying all of this at this rate. So this is the price that I'm being charged for everything. Right, and this is the total amount I'm supposed to pay for all of this, 1,517,200. So I'm going to make a payment of a million on this, and I'm going to be paying via cash. I'm paying via cash, and I'm paying just 1 million. So I'm paying just 1 million. So you see that immediately I imputed this 1 million, my outstanding amount reduced to 517,200. Right. Then once I'm done with that, I can click on save. So clicking on save, I can then look through and make sure that all is well. Make sure that I imputed everything right. Let me just check this. So here, let me quickly explain this portion, the edit button. So it says you are receiving just one quantity in the units of measure in a bought unit of measurement, one, and how many is this in the stock unit of measurement. So this is just one, since the stock unit of measurement and the unit of measurement you are using are the same. So the unit of measurement you are using right now is bottle, and the stock unit of measurement as well is bottle. So bottle equals bottle, that's one. So one of these definitely equals one bottle. Now the price list rate is 192,000. So that is the price on the price list. So probably that's the price that we are used to buying it. But I'm saying that I bought this at 180,000 naira. All right, so that is what rate is. So if I have had a discount, I can always select discount. But obviously, since I'm buying this at 180,000 instead of 192,000, obviously I have a discount of 6.250 from the price rate. So that's 12,000 naira discount. Okay. Then the rate is 180,000, total amount is 180,000. The new rate, net amount, all of that. Then this is the warehouse I'm accepting it into my stores. And since I'm not manufacturing this, there's nothing in the manufacture part. Then the accounting head, so this is going to go into my stock in hand. So since I'm buying this and I'm updating stock, it's going to be going into stock in hand. If I was not updating stock, this is going to be going to cost of goods sold. But since I'm updating stock, it's going to stock in hand. Deferred expense, there is no need to enable deferred expense. Then reference, if there's a BOM for this, there's no reason to have a bill of material for this. So there's no reason to even input anything here. Then item weight details, if you have the weight of the items, you can always input those here. Then accounting dimensions, that's cost center and project. Again, since I didn't select any cost center there, it's going to select default cost center. So that is my main cost center, main FAOT. All right, so when that is done, and I'm sure that everything I have inputted here is what I want, I can then click on submit. So I'm paying 1 million via cash. Payment term is 100%, which that's supposed to be the payment term, but again, let's just leave it at that. So I click on submit. I submit this, and immediately I submit, I can see that this is now shown as partly paid. So now this is shown as partly paid since I only paid a million out of everything I was supposed to pay. All right. So when next I want to make full payment or make the rest of the payment for this, I can always click on create and create a payment for this. Then again, we are going to do that bit in payment entry. So let's check our stock balances and make sure that all of these items we bought show up in our stock. So to do that, we just use the stock balance report. So we just type in stock balance, report stock balance, and filter dates. We check the company, input our company name, then what warehouse do we want to see. So remember that we received all these items in our stores warehouse. So I'm going to say we are taking it from stores, and then generate, we want to see data in stores, sorry, and then generate a new report. So generating a new report, we can see that all of the items we bought are showing. So we have Ace of Spade, we have one bottle of Ace of Spade, one of Ace of Spade Demisec, one Azul, 12 Coke, 3 bottles of Don Julio, and 2 NSA XO bottles. Right. So this shows that yes, these items have been received in stock and they are properly shown in our stores warehouse. All right. So the next thing I want to show now is making sales. All right. So these are the items we've bought: Ace of Spade, Don Julio, all of this. So I want to make sales of these items, some of these items. So I'm going to do that. We are going to be using the sales invoice. So to get to the sales invoice, like I said, you can find the sales invoice in the accounting module. But another way to get there is to use the search bar. So using the search bar, I can just type on sales invoice list, and it shows me all of the sales invoices that I've made on the system throughout. So here is a sales invoice I've made before, guest for 1,000 naira. Right, so I want to make a new sales invoice. So I'm going to click on add sales invoice. All right, so this is the sales invoice. This is the sales invoice document. Right, so you have the series, you have the company, the customer, and many others. So our company is for all of the assets. This is the company we're using for all of the assets. Sorry. So I'm going to say our customer is guest, the guest customer, and I'm going to, if I want to edit the date that this happened, I can always edit that, but I'm going to leave it. I can always edit that by clicking on edit posting date and time. So clicking on edit posting date and time lets me edit the date, right? So I'm not going to edit the date, I'm just going to leave it as that. Then if this was paid for, I can include the payment here, right? Then it automatically fills in the POS profile for me. Then again, accounting dimensions, if I have a cost center, then customer PO details. If there was a purchase order attached to this sale from the customer's end, I can always write it here. I can always input it here, and the customer's purchase order date. Then the address and contact is the address and contact of the customer. Currency and price list is the currency and price that is going to be used on this sales invoice. So Nigerian Naira and standard selling. Then source warehouse is where these items are going to be deducted from, right? Then update stock is if I want this sale to affect my stock value. So if I deselect update stock, you see that the source warehouse prompt has disappeared. But once I click on update stock, the source warehouse prompt is there. Right, so this is where I input all of my any of the items I want to sell, the quantity and the rate at which I'm selling them at. Then over here, there's a timesheet attached to this again. This is not really necessary. Then this shows me my total quantity, total net rate, and the total amount. If there are sales taxes attached to this, I can always select them here. But remember, the sales taxes must have been previously created. So here we have Nigerian tax, but I'm not going to use any sales taxes on this. Then if you select the sales tax, it's going to show you the rate and the amount and the total amount of tax that's going to be charged over here. Then over here, you have total taxes and charges here. Now here you have your loyalty points redemption. If you want to redeem loyalty points, you can always select this. Then here you have your additional discount. So if you are giving out a discount on this sale, you can always input that discount in percentages or in cash value. So you can apply the discount on grand total or your net total. Now here is your totals section. So it shows you your grand total, the rounding adjustment, the rounding total, and the outstanding amount. Now, if you've made an advance payment on probably a sales order, probably when creating a sales order, you've created an advance payment, then you can always select that advance payment here, right? So this is where you select your modes of payment, the mode of payment that was used to pay for this particular sale. It shows you your paid amount, your total paid amount. Now over here is where you have your base change amount. So if there's going to be a change, probably if you paid more than you were supposed to, this is where you're going to see your base change amount, your change amount, and this is the account that the change amount is going to go to. Then terms and conditions, if there are particular terms and conditions for this sale, this is where you input it. Printing and settings, again, you don't have to input anything here. More information, you don't have to input much. And if this sale is for a campaign, probably you're trying to do a campaign where you have a slash price or something and you want to easily track all the sales made in that campaign, you can always select a campaign here. All right, so accounting details, again, it just shows you where to debit it, then the remarks. Then commission is if there's a commission on this sale for a particular sales partner, this is where you input that commission. Now, if there is a sales team for this particular sales, you select the salesperson, the sales team, or everyone in the sales team, their contribution to the sale, their contribution to the net total, and the commission rate and the incentives the person is entitled to from this sale. Now, over here is where we have subscription. So if you have your notes for this particular, so you can always input that here. Then again, not all of you don't have to not everything here is compulsory to fill. So the main things you have to fill are your series, the company name, the customer, the date, um, the warehouse that you're going to be selected, you're going to be deducting from if you want this sale to affect stock quantity, the items that you want to sell, um, there's a discount, fill it here. Again, it's not compulsory. The grant, so this is and if they're making payments, please select your payments here. All right, so let's go on to what we're going to sell. So in this sale, I'm just going to say I'm selling first of all, I'm going to be deducting items from my stores warehouse since that's where I have stock right now. So I'm going to be deducting from my stores warehouse and I'm going to be selling Coke. I'm going to be selling Coke and I'm going to be selling, let's say I'm going to be selling 5 bottles of Coke. All right, 5 bottles of Coke at 1,000 naira, so that's 5,000 naira. All right, and I'm going to be saying I'm making this payment. I can see I'm making this payment via cash, PS, or transfer. So I can split all of this, so I can just select just one. So I'm going to be saying I'm making this payment via just cash, so 5,000 naira via cash. And since I'm not paying anything with PS or transfer, I can always delete this too. Or if I want to add another mode of payment, probably I want to add the GTB mode of payment, the transfer to GTB that I created in the previous video. You can always add that here and select the amount that was paid. So let's say I input another 5,000. I just want to show you something. I'm going to see a change amount here since now I'm paying 10,000 for something that is actually worth 5,000. 10,000, then the change amount is going to be 5,000 naira. But I'm not doing that, so I'm just going to say this was paid via cash alone. All right. So once I'm done with all of this, I click on save. But let's make part payment. So let's just pay 4,000 for this. 4,000. We're going to make the remaining payment using payment entry, 4,000 naira. So I'm going to save this again. So now if you look over here, you're going to see that your outstanding amount is 1,000 naira since you're paying 4,000 out of the 5,000 total. All right, then I click on submit. So clicking on submit now, I see over here that this is part, right? Since I paid only 4,000 out of my 5,000 naira payment. So again, if I want to create a payment for this, I can always create it from here. So create, then payment. So the next thing we are going to talk about now is making payment. So we've made a purchase and a sale, and we have to make payment for those two. Okay, we partly paid for those two. So now I want to make full payment for, I want to make the rest of the payment for those two. So let's first pay for this. We are going to pay partly again for this. So in the 1,000 naira that is left, they are going to be paying 500 naira for this. All right. So to do that, same sales invoice, okay. Probably let's go back to the start. Clicking on the home button, then I come back to accounting, and I come to sales invoice. From the sales invoice, I find the one that is partly paid for. I open it back, and I click on create. I click on create payment. All right. So click on create payment, and it brings me to the payment entry interface. Right. So here it says, it asks me the date that this payment was made, what type of payment it is, if it's a receive or a pay, then the company, then the mode of payment. So how am I making this payment? So I'm going to say I'm making this payment via we've been using cash since, so let's use something else. Let's say we are using transfer to GTB. Right. So if you've selected, if you've linked a particular mode of payment, if you linked a particular company bank account to this mode of payment, it's going to pop up here. Now over here it says payment from or to. So the party type is going to be a customer. The party is guest, so that's the party's name, and this is automatically populated. So if this payment type was pay, obviously this would have been supplier, then the supplier's name, right? So over here we have accounts. So the party balance, how much is guest owing currently on the system. So I'm saying it's owing 1,000, and since I selected transfer to GTB, so this amount is going to be paid. Whatever amount I select here is going to be paid to GTB FAOT. Account paid from is test. The currency is Nigerian naira. The account balance is 0. So I don't have any money in the account currently. So I'm saying I paid 500 naira. 500 naira, right? So now later I imputed that 500 naira. It's allocated 500 naira to this particular sales invoice. So this particular sales invoice is the sales invoice that I created previously. It's the sale I made previously, right? So I'm paying 500 naira out of the 1,000 naira. Right? So total allocated amount is 500 naira. Once I save this, you're going to see an unallocated amount, and it's going to show you a difference. Right? So if there are taxes and charges, I can always select that here. Then over here we have check all reference number. So if there's a reference number for this payment. So for stuff that include like a bank transfer, so there could be a transaction ID. You can always input that transaction ID here. So I'm going to say the transaction ID for this was 0001, and the reference date was the 18th, right? Then accounting dimensions, if I have project linked to this sale or a cost center, I can always select that here. More information, again, not really necessary. All right, so once I'm done with all of this, I click on save. All right, what's this? Sorry, before I click on save, what this button does, get outstanding invoices, is once you've selected a customer, all right, and you are going through payment entry, you click on get outstanding invoices. It's going to ask you, it's going to try and get all outstanding documents um for that customer from a particular date to a particular date. All right. So if you want to specify more of this, you can always specify, but specifying from a date to a date is actually very, very okay. So once you've done that, you click on get outstanding documents. All right. But I'm not going to do that. So I'm just paying 500 naira out of the 1,000 naira that is being owed by the customer. So once I'm done, I click on save, and I have the opportunity to look through again and make sure everything is done right. Then I click on submit. So once I click on submit, this is where it brings me. Then I can always go back to this sales invoice and see what it shows now. This sales invoice should still be showing partly paid, since I've just paid 500 now. So that's 4,005 out of the 5,000 now that was initially charged for the sale. So if I go back to this sales invoice, I'm still going to be seeing partly paid, right? So the next thing I want to do is I want us to use payment entry to make payment for this sale, to make the remaining 500 naira payment for this sale. So I'm going to be going through payment entry instead of going through the sales invoice to make the payment. Right. So to do that, you can find payment entry in the accounting module. So let's just do that. So we go back to the accounting, and here we have payment entry. So click on payment entry, and this is the payment we just made now for that sale. So the 500 now we just made, you just paid. So we click on add payment entry, and here we select the specific. So this payment type is going to be a receive. The date is 18th. The payment mode, I'm going to say we are paying this one via cash, right? So cash. So the party type now is going to be, since we are receiving a payment, is going to be from a customer. Customer. So who is the customer? Guest is the customer. Guests. Then over here it asks me how much the guest paid. So I'm saying guest paid 500 naira. Then you can see that immediately I imputed the amount, it's brought up this reference page, so I can select the get outstanding invoices. So here you can select the invoices you want the system to get for you from what date to what date. And say from the 19th of December 2022 to the 18th of January 2023. Okay, so I'm going to click on get outstanding documents and it should bring in that particular document, 5,000 naira, and the outstanding is 500 naira, and I'm paying 500 naira. All right, so no taxes, nothing. Then the check reference number, I'm going to say 0002. The reference date is still the same date, 18th of January. No accounting dimensions. And once I'm done with those, I click on save and I have a chance to look through again and make sure everything is right. And then I click on submit. Right, so now I've made payment for this particular sales invoice for this particular sale. So if you go back to this particular sales invoice, you will see that instead of it showing the partly paid we've been seeing ever since, it's going to be showing paid. So let's go back to that sales invoice. So now we can see that it is showing as paid since we do not have any outstanding on this sale any longer. So this is already showing as paid. So this sales invoice has been completely paid for. If you go to our sales invoice list, it's going to be showing that it is paid. All right, so the next thing we are doing is to pay for that purchase that we made earlier. So let's go to payment entry list, and we'll click on add payment entry. Then now we are paying this, we are not receiving it, we are making a payment. All right, then the mode of payment, I'm going to say we are paying via, let's say, cash, paying via cash. Party type, this is a supplier, then the supplier is open market. Right, so how much am I paying? I think I was owing, let's see, I paid 500,000, 500 to 3. So here it's asked me to get outstanding invoices, and I click on get outstanding documents. So now over here it says I'm owing 517,200 and I'm paying 500,000. So you know what? Let's just pay for this full outstanding amount. So let's say I'm paying for 517,200. 517,200. I'm paying the full amount. Reference number 00005. The reference date is on the 18th. No accounting dimensions, nothing. So we click on save and check and make sure all is correct with everything. Once we are sure that everything is well done, we click on submit and it's been submitted. So if you go back to that purchase invoice and we click on it, the purchase invoice, and we refresh this, it's showing partly paid now, but once we refresh it, it's going to be showing that this has been completely paid for. Right, so now we've made payment for our purchase and our sales. So we've gone through purchase invoice, sales invoice, and making payments. Right. Right. So with this, I believe we've come to the end of today's lesson. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.